Get ready, because it's the TacoTuesday.com podcast.
All right, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the TacoTuesday.com podcast. Today we have Dave Mao, who prepared all of this.
Out of the back of my Prius.
Out of the back of his Prius.
My lifted Prius even.
Ooh, it's lifted.
Yeah, you can put spacers on a Prius, 1.5-inch spacers, and then you can put two 1570 R15s on them, and it takes up about 4 inches. Because when I started private chefing in California, I wanted something I could jam anywhere in.
Yep.
So I built this lifted Prius. I've since bought like a brand new super bougie 4Runner. But yeah, super handy. Bomb any wine country road, work in Sonoma County, take it to Baja, rip the hell out of it down there. Yeah, it's pretty handy actually.
You're the first person that's ever done something cool with the Prius, I feel like.
I think it might be the case.
Lifted Prius on my bingo card for 2025. I'll tell you that right
Oh my God.
That's
right?
awesome.
Yeah. It's actually shockingly handy.
Yeah.
I believe
No,
that.
we got a big day today. It's, I don't know, I guess people probably don't know watching this, but today's Inauguration Day. It's
Yay!
Martin Luther
Time for
King Jr.
recording
Day.
this.
Yay. We're all feeling something. So we're going to sing the Pledge of Allegiance to
I
start.
know, right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Yeah, exactly.
Pledge
why we got
allegiance to
food.
Canada.
So distract. Wherever you fall on that battle, we're going to eat and talk about other stuff.
Exactly,
right.
Exactly.
That's right. So, how did you get started doing what you do?
Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord. Yeah, I mean, my first job was at McDonald's when I was a kid. And I was 16 at the time, so I've been in the restaurant business my whole life. And ironically, I have a film degree. I went to Cal State Fullerton, and I interned actually on Titanic and
Nice.
did visual effects stuff for a long time. Real strong photographic background. I studied photography, and then I was on tour with a lot of bands in the 90s, shooting rock and roll and stuff.
Nice.
Just then a lot of front of house experience. I was the bar manager at Memphis Cafe in Costa Mesa, on and off for about 17 years, and worked at Linda's Doll Hut. Did the food photography at Disney for a decade. Wrote for the OC Weekly. Gustavo was kind enough to give me my start writing, so a real pretty strong writing background as well. And right now I'm doing this private chef thing. I do Sonoma County, Orange County, and Baja. And, you know, at this late stage, you know, I'm late 50s now. I'm hardly a spring chicken, but a lot of skill sets all kind of came together for me to do this private chef thing right now.
Nice.
And arguably, probably by most measures, I'm the highest rated chef globally on Airbnb experiences right now. I don't want to go completely all the way with the highest, but depending on the metric. So I love what I do. I just travel around and be awesome. That's all I got. So.
That's awesome, man.
You do the be awesome part pretty well, I got to say.
Thank you.
Right when you walked in here, I could tell.
I like being nice. It pays, especially with a little bit of perspective, some time under your hands. Certainly, I'm lucky to be alive after all the adventures I've been through.
Yep.
And you know, I've been working up in the High Sierra for 25 years, way in the backcountry of the Ansel Adams Wilderness, a place called Vermilion Valley Resort, and High Sierra Pack Station. I haven't worked at Vermilion since COVID summer. But just a interesting, you know, covered a lot of ground doing what I do, and it's super fortunate to be passionate about food. Still, you know, I quit drinking 7 years ago, but still super passionate about, beverages. I love cocktail culture, even though I don't partake anymore. Cocktail culture is great. I love spirits. The beer world's fantastic right now too, which is awesome. So yeah,
That's killer, man. You said that you've got a background, you know, interning on Titanic, photography, things of that nature. That's not something that's new by any stretch of the imagination with the hospitality world. I think of there's tons of examples of people that are also big into photography or also big into videography that are also opening places or work at places. Why do you think visual arts and hospitality kind of go hand in hand a little bit?
you know, they're both creative endeavors. And I think for a lot of chefs, you know, I say when I did food writing, I didn't really I didn't do restaurant reviews generally.
Yeah.
It was more restaurant history, definitely chef culture, chef headspace and stuff. I think all chefs, including myself, whatever a chef is, by the way, I'm still not sure what that is, but whatever a chef is, I think we all cook from dark, hurt places in some form. And I think any creative endeavor like that, visual arts, you're trying to express something And it's not surprising with technology and media that a lot of people kind of cross over into both of them, even if they don't have a formal background in it. So being able to do both, I think, helps you navigate a lot of ground in the restaurant world right now. And people that work in restaurants is because they don't want to do a 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
So they are probably more likely to have gone to even community college, taking a photography class or a painting class. They got, 1 or 2 kind of groovy things floating in the background that will percolate up into their experience in the restaurant world as well.
That makes sense.
Excellent use of the word groovy.
You like that?
Yeah,
I've been using groovy a lot lately. Yes. And working NorCal, working Sonoma County, I was fortunate. I actually built a tiny house post-COVID summer in Grass Valley. I was originally going to work Gold Country as a private chef. That was my intention. And then I got picked up by an agency in Sonoma. And for me, Sonoma County has been a particular emotional journey because my family settled Sonoma County in the 1800s.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They settled Sonoma City itself in 1849, and then the other side, one of the branches of my family owned all of downtown Healdsburg back in the 1800s. So to be up there, circling back to this after everything I've been through and a lot of loss, to be honest, and making a pretty darn good living doing it is a real blessing. Sonoma County is starting to feel like home for sure. Still love Orange County. Love City of Orange, love where I live, deep roots here for sure. But being able to jump back and forth has been a real blessing.
Yeah.
I do love Sonoma County.
That is pretty interesting that like the date that your family settled in Sonoma. Like, did you grow up hearing these stories from your family? Like, they just, I don't know, kind of told you as you were growing up?
No, I didn't hear anything. Any details about it. And my younger brother Chris, who is still the best cook I've ever known. I've written a couple articles about him, and all of this is actually my brother that's sitting in front of you. He's the one that taught me about Mexican food. I've worked with a lot of extraordinarily gifted chefs in the past few years, and particularly the past 2.
Mm-hmm.
People like Brooke Williamson and Rick Bayless and Javier Plasencia, all these guys. But the core of how I cook is still like my brother. And I grew up in Ontario. Right. I grew up in the 909. I didn't come up in Orange County. I didn't come up fancy. So the grittiness, the weird things that even drive some of my chef friends crazy are leftovers from my younger brother, Chris. But after Chris passed away, that was 16 years ago last summer, part of the journey of maybe healing some of those wounds and some of that loss was I'd always heard these shadowy tales about my family on my paternal grandmother's side being from Santa something or another, California. No one talked about it. And then I found an old family letter, started doing some piecing together. And again, as part of this emotional journey through some very, very dark periods of my time, I lost my younger brother, my younger sister, and both my parents in the space of about 8 years.
Wow. Jesus.
Oh, yeah, I was super gnarly. And my younger brother, doing this private chef thing, I have so many clients that just ask me, they're like, oh my God, chef, if you watch The Bear, it's the best show ever. And I'm like, listen, I've lived it because similar circumstances to what happened to my brother and sister, were along those lines. Which, to be honest, when I finally hit the wall on some of my bad habits, when I turned 50 or 51, and had to make some really motherfucking hard decisions about which direction I was going to go with my life, including whether I wanted to live or die. That was the reason that I chose the direction that I did, because I didn't want to do that. But yeah, my clients are like, oh my God, The Bear's the best show ever. I'm like, I'm not watching that show unless I'm like really centered up or in a rad headspace or something.
Yeah.
But circling back to the Sonoma County Russian River experience, the journey there, again, there's times when I look at it and I wonder if it's healthy or if it's not. I find myself chasing something really hard in Sonoma County and I don't know what it is. And to work towards something, I want it, especially at this phase of my life, I want to feel healthy. I want to feel productive. Yeah. But my client engagement in Sonoma County is fantastic. We get a lot of people. It's a destination spot. People come in from out of state and out of the country. They love dude, when you make this for people from Milwaukee or Rhode Island, right? This is just salsa roja. Yeah. Oh my God, the chef made salsa roja. And I'm like, dude, it's Tuesday in Orange County, but they don't have that. They don't have real tortillas.
No.
It's a damn shame.
It is a damn shame.
And by the way, I know everybody's watching. You can't taste this, but it's bomb. I've already had a lot of that salsa, and I plan on having more. Especially kind of nowadays with social media coming and going. What's up, TikTok? A lot of people, I really love the phrase, like, just go outside and touch some grass. And basically it's just because we get in these echo chambers of social media and people are just arguing online and nobody knows who anybody is because it's all anonymity and everything's just toxic and shitty. And I love that line of like, dude, just like get off social media for a minute, go outside, touch some grass. For you as a chef, open kitchens are now a thing. So you're not kind of always relegated to this back room, but to be able to go outside to some of these places and cook. And again, for people that have not seen Sonoma County, it's freaking gorgeous up there, as is Baja, as is some of these other places. What's it like to not only be cooking, but doing it like outside, kind of in the wild sometimes, from like an emotional standpoint?
Doing stuff, particularly in the High Sierra with, I work for some friends, John and Janice Cunningham out of Fresno area. They have a multi-generational pack station called High Sierra Pack Station. I'm not going to make more of it than it is. I've probably done 8 or 10 pack trips, mule stuff up to the high country over the past 20 years.
Cool.
Yeah, but I spent a lot of time cooking in the cookhouse there. And I was cooking at Vermilion Valley Resort for almost a quarter of a century on and off, depending on my schedule. But I was involved there. I think people get used to this. Not that this is a bad place, but people get used to industrial complexes. They get used to offices. They get used to warehouse jobs or whatever. So to turn that off for a second, at least for a second, I think it's super fucking important.
Yeah.
And not in that hashtag thing of the week headspace or whatever, to make it like an actual part of your life.
Yeah.
Like I said, I almost got a little choked up there for a second, but the past 4 years for me, COVID summer changed my life because I was working for Chef's Warehouse, watched the machine implode from the inside out, and then there was nothing going on in the restaurant business. And I went up to the High Sierra in May and cooked the whole summer, got my ass kicked. It's the best my knife hand had been. My knife hand was extraordinary. It has never been better. And then I actually evac'd Creek Fire. I drove through Creek Fire. We evac'd Creek Fire because we got cut off. The 168 got cut off in the high country. We drove out. But that summer changed my life because that was a summer I decided at 51 years old, that I was not, wait, hold on. 51, 52, COVID summer, 54 years old, or 53, that I wasn't going to do something I didn't want to do forever. So I was like, fuck this. I'm going to build a tiny house in Grass Valley. I'm going to be a private chef. I'm going to take a shot at it. Just do what I want. Let's just roll all the dice, like all 16 dice, take them out. And it paid off, and what I'm kind of driving at is I had a friend tell me a long time ago is build it backwards. And I didn't see it until I was in my late 50s, where it doesn't matter what you do, right? Hopefully you do something you enjoy and you're good at it. But it's more important to figure out where you want to be, what you want your life to look like, and then build all the pieces backwards from that. And at least, knock on wood, that's happened for me in the past few years. I've been super, super lucky.
I like that. That's awesome.
That is, I mean, it's great to, when bad things happen in life, it's like you get the fork in the road of which way to go. You can spiral down or do something productive and sort of channel your energy into something that's going to be better for you yourself in the long run. And it's always great to see people that choose, to better themselves when they have to deal with such horrible circumstances, as you've seen in your life. So I'm really happy for you that you were able to make such a success and do something that makes you happy and, cooking all this food and thinking about your brother. Like that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's inspiring.
And, it's also about making other people happy. Like part of what I really like doing about being a private chef, particularly in Sonoma County, is I get to be part of someone's big trip. They do it once a year, dude. It's not like us, right? We'll go jam to up there. Maybe if you live in Orange County, maybe make it to Sonoma County once every other year.
I'm driving up to Monterey tomorrow.
Yeah. But, for someone from back east or out of the country, they might only do Sonoma County once in their life. So for me to guide them through what I know and, checkered vans, cowboy hat, the style, I'll talk about how I cook later on, but, this style of food, people that we take it for granted. I like being, I like the thought of some little kid who's maybe 6 or 8 years old right now, looking back and remembering the checkered vans, cowboy hat guy that cooked on their big family trip to whatever. And part of the reason I'm one of the highest rated chefs on most of these platforms is because I just like being gracious. And most chefs, unfortunately, are dickheads. They don't like people. I did an article for the OC Weekly many years ago. It's called 7 Ways Working Food and Beverage Will Ruin Your Life. And there was the big ticket ones like
I remember that article. Yeah,
it was one of my most well received ones.
Yep.
There was the big ticket ones. You'll party too much. You'll learn to hate people. Also, by the way, we eat too fast in the restaurant business because we don't have a lot of time to eat. We'll dive in the dish pit and choke back a burger.
Yep.
But one of them was you'll learn to hate people, and it's not so much that you hate people as individuals, you just learn to hate the concept of people, which is why on Mondays, everyone is at El Ranchito having margaritas with all their restaurant buddies on their day off, right? You don't want to deal with the public. Most chefs are like that. I'm the opposite because A, I like to talk. B, I was front of house for a long time. I can walk into any room at any vacation rental and put the pieces together, generally speaking, and make for an awesome evening. A lot of chefs are very persnickety and they just don't want to deal with random requests.
Yeah.
And when I talk with new private chefs, I'm like, listen, dude, you're not working 60 hours a week in a restaurant. You can shut the fuck up for 3 hours and be nice.
Yeah.
Like it's not that big of a deal. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
I wonder how that became a thing because I spent so much time working front of house, as a server and as a bartender. And you meet really great people. You have great conversations. It's very engaging. You learn cool shit from people. And then it felt like the majority of interactions I'd have with people would be negative, and it does jade you after a while. Years and years of just being treated like shit and putting on the fake smile. I wonder how that came about, like from the chef's perspective, being back of house.
What came about?
Like it does seem to be a thing in the industry that some chefs are very, almost have a chip on their shoulder, or they're just, they don't want to take any requests. I'm going to do it my way, period.
Yeah.
I wonder how that got started.
I mean, it's probably been that way historically in some manner forever. You know what I mean? The ideas of chefs as creators, and you always have a tendency to, babysit your creations and have narrow views of them. Can be something that screenwriters and painters or anybody else can have a pretty narrow view of what they do, which can be both good and bad, right? Work to your advantage and your disadvantage. I think when you start talking about chef headspace, I always wonder if the cultural expectation feeds into the actuality of it or not. The pan throwing and, the Instagram clip of like the guy that's showing the woman how to cut Wagyu steak and flip it, whatever that one everyone's seen. That suddenly you have to be like some kind of dickhead. That does not mean you're Obi-fucking-Wan Kenobi just because you act like an asshole.
No.
Those are two different quantities right there. I found that being kind and gracious and quiet is generally the best way to build culture. At least that's a deeper narrative than yelling at people. And I said one time, a long time to a buddy of mine that was opening a restaurant. I was like, listen, man, great menus are built on great kitchens, not the other way around. Like if you build a good kitchen culture, if you understand what's going on with your crew, if you nurture what they want, without letting yourself get walked all over, being all namby-pamby about it. There's realities that we have to deal with. We build a culture where your crew will do anything for you. You're going to end up with a good kitchen. And that doesn't mean you need to throw pants. It doesn't mean you need to dance around it or not drop the hammer. Fuck, dude, I don't care. When someone's fucking up, they're fucking up. That's all there is to it. But the idea that you automatically have to be some sort of dickhead to be an effective chef, maybe that's for people younger in their careers too. Again, I'm a little bit older. My viewpoint's a little bit different. I know some chefs in their late 20s, early to mid 30s that are a little bit more like that. But at this point in my career, I'm not like that. I find other things of value.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to flip the coin a little bit, I've seen how much chefs have on their plate when it comes to ordering, having organization on the line, like making sure all their people that are doing the cooking, doing the job are, knowledgeable and doing everything correctly. So there is definitely a lot of pressure on the chef because if anything goes wrong, the hammer comes down on the chef.
It's their ass. Yes,
Right. Strangers on Yelp with an opinion.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. People keep your opinions to yourself.
They're never going to
cares
sponsor this show. It's fine. Not with me on it.
Yelp was an interesting, again, perspective being around a little bit longer. I remember when Yelp came out. And I was executive chef at a restaurant in Palm Springs called The Alibi that didn't open. That was the second time that had happened. It's a very frustrating position to be in as a chef, by the way, where you're like waiting, like, okay, are we going to open? And my contract's up in 4 months and I'm babysitting contractors and then the place doesn't open because you sink a lot of creative energy into the whole thing. But I remember you don't get to choose, at least that I'm aware of, you don't get to choose what your restaurant gets branded as, right? And I was like rolling the dice in my head. I was like, I bet we're going to be called New American. And then sure enough, the first couple of Yelp reviews came out. I was like, New American Restaurant. And I was like, oh man, I knew it.
It's the biggest swath of paint to put over a restaurant. And you're like, we don't know what they do. It must be New American. Yeah. As long as there's a burger on the menu, New American.
Yeah, and some sort of bougie salad, definitely.
Yeah, hands down. Yeah, beet and goat cheese, super revolutionary.
Although Memphis started the goat cheese and beet salad way back in the day. And
that's fair. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't like beets. And I was working there for about 10 years before I had that salad. And then I had one. I was like, oh my God, this thing's really fucking good.
Like I should have paid attention sooner.
Like, one of my best friends is a woman, Cassandra. She went to film school with me. Mm-hmm. She was actually my food stylist at Disney, probably one of my closest personal confidants too. But I remember she's like, I don't know why you don't like that salad, Dave. It's a great salad. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, just because I was being an asshole, I didn't try it, And sure enough, I finally tried it. I'm like, oh, this salad's really, really, really good. Memphis was a great cultural proving ground. I was working at Linda's Doll Hut for a long time. The legendary, the CBGBs of the West Coast, apparently. And then when Linda's closed in 2001, then I started working at Memphis, although I'd been hanging out there since pretty much day one at Memphis. But being at Memphis taught me a lot about restaurant culture. I mean, it was a cultural landmark.
Yeah.
The LA Times said it was the most important restaurant culturally to open in Orange County in the past 25 years, whenever that piece came out a long time ago. So being around that culture was great, guys. And those Memphis glory days in the early 2000s were just, they weren't even trying. It was like cool because you just had cool people hanging around and lots of creative dynamics and a lot of great food and great DJs. I mean, it was a great
the whole package.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stories that come out of the early days of that, where there was just kind of unstoppable culture wise.
And we were just pros at partying. Pros!
Every night's industry night. The hospitality industry, we're recording this on, what is it, 20th, right?
The 20th.
Inauguration day here in the U.S., when people will be seeing this later on. But at the time of this recording, we're also still dealing with the wildfires that are ravaging Los Angeles. Wildfires are not anything new. You even just mentioned that you had to evacuate with the Creek Fire.
Creek Fire 2020.
Which I think I remember seeing in like your social media or something too. I was like, oh shit, like be safe.
That's when they were flying the CH-54.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
The lake bed
yeah.
And I got out right before that.
Yep. But again, it's kind of topical now that we have the LA fires going on too, because all the firefighters are coming in and kicking ass and doing their jobs. I have a couple friends that are up there staying safe and kicking ass. You've got first responders, you have medical, things like that. But you also have chefs and restaurateurs, people opening up their restaurants, free meals for first responders, things like that. We just did the Orange County initiative where restaurants donated for LA Food Bank. Shout out to that. What is it about the hospitality industry that they're almost first responders are hitting the fire, everybody else is taking care of the injured, and then chefs are right there feeding people? I mean, shit, Jose Andres was on the ground, 24 hours after that thing broke out?
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
What is it about hospitality that they're like, okay, next in line, we got you?
I was just talking with someone about this yesterday. The reason is because restaurateurs are used to being a state of flux and being a state of chaos, right? I'm a terrible 9-to-5er, right?
Yeah.
I don't function in that universe at
That's
all.
why I'm here.
I know, right? Yeah, me too. That's why we're hanging out here right now. I don't function in that universe. I hate people dithering. I hate being around corporate culture where everyone has a fucking opinion, but nobody wants to make an actual decision. This shit drives me crazy, right?
Yeah.
And in the restaurant business, you just pull the pin. Dude, I just made all this food out of the back of my Prius right now. Like, what the fuck ever? We'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
It's the best pop-up ever.
Yeah. And for chefs and restaurateurs, when they get in a position where they feel they need to do something, it's never a committee process, generally speaking. It's never, you have to take things like liability and scheduling and things into account. But generally speaking, it's like, hey, let's just put the fucking pieces together and do this. So when chefs are able to pull the pin on something in 36 hours to come to, or let's just say any restaurateur can pull the pin on something and throw something together in 36 hours. I mean, that's just what we do. And people take for granted, guys, that the fucking restaurant business is day to day, man. Like, it is day to fucking day. Yep. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care what your restaurant is. I don't care what the revenue is. I don't care what the fucking footprint is. I don't care where you're located. It is day to day. There is no set, promise of even being open a week, theoretically. Like you're day to day just making your deliveries there, make sure your staff's fucking showing up, make all this stuff. So for us to lateral out into something real quick, whatever, figure it out. Got some paper plates and some hotel pads. What do we have laying around? Let's go do it.
Yeah. I mean, things like COVID and wildfires would really bring that out in the restaurant industry.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was podcasting about 2 or 3 years ago with, oh dear Lord, I forget who it was. But, if you would have told any restaurant, right before COVID started, it's like, you're going to have to just close for a year and figure it out. Every fucking restaurant would have said you were crazy, like insane, like out of touch with reality.
Yeah.
And the simple matter is that, a lot of restaurants figured it out. Some of them didn't, and, that was a very, very dynamic time in the restaurant industry when I look back at it. A lot of people scrambling and adjusting.
Yeah.
Like you said, how do chefs lateral the stuff? Well, fuck her, and,
Like figure it out or don't.
Yeah.
Sink or swim.
Makes me wonder what kind of infrastructure they're going to put in place now that we know that something like that can just come in and wreak havoc, especially on an industry like the restaurant industry, where you have to have social distancing, people can't get together, breaking bread with people is such a part of human culture. It's, very shocking when all of a sudden you can't do that. Nobody really knew what to do with themselves. I wonder if we're going to see it again in our lifetimes, another pandemic like that. And number two, how it's going to be dealt with.
Not unless there's a new season of Tiger King.
Oh,
that's the indication. They're like, new season of Tiger King.
That's a fucking apocalypse. Yeah.
Isn't that new to
Buy the
jail?
wine and the toilet paper. We got to stock up.
Yeah, the toilet paper. Oh my God. What a mess, dude. What a mess.
I've got a great story for you, and it's not quite non-PC, but it's a good one. When COVID fucking first hit, I remember it was freaking out. No one would leave their house. Like it was obviously everyone did. We just didn't. It was uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Right.
Later on, we learned how to adjust around certain things and whatever. But I remember I went to the Stater Brothers by my house, right? And I was going to get some stuff, and then I was also going to go to Superior Grocers around the corner and get a 25-pound bag of rice and a 25-pound bag of beans, just to have it.
Yeah.
I can probably get by on that if I have to, right? So I'm at Stater Brothers. All the Tustonites, all the super gabacho-y, gringo-y Tustonites were like at each other's throats. It was a big deal. Everyone's buying fucking water and toilet paper.
Yep.
Everyone. And I was like, why toilet paper, right? So anyways, I get done with my run to Stater Brothers. I go jam over Superior Grocers. And I was actually on the phone with Gustavo Arellano in line for some reason. And it was like, everyone there was like, oh, it's El Apocalypso, like that was like Tuesday in Central America, right? And what was funny to me, and I was talking with Gustavo about it, it was all tortillas and sweet drinks in the carts. And I was like, Gustavo, like, what's with the panic buying of the sodas and the Tampico punches and stuff? And it's just culturally different. Like that's what it was. With the people from Tustin, it was water and toilet paper. And you go to, and I'm sure if you went somewhere else, it would be something else. Dude,
it was toilet paper and Lysol wipes.
Oh my God.
Gone.
Yeah.
Dude, I was renting rooms at the time at my house in Santa Ana, and one of my roommates at the time texted me, make sure you buy toilet paper. I'm like, dude, I have 20,000 catering napkins in the garage. Like,
figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Also, what is happening that we all needed that much? Like, you needed to see a doctor, man.
Well, yeah, for sure. I guess maybe if I had a kid, I don't have kids. Maybe if I had kids or I was married or something, it would be a little bit different. But yeah, that time during COVID when all of a sudden everything came to a screeching halt, and a lot of the things that we took for granted culturally as far as being able to interact, like it just never happened. And if you're asking me if that would ever happen again, and I hate to say our lifetimes, you guys are a little bit younger than me, I might not live to see it, but I bet we see something that would be more along the lines of some sort of really gratuitous, like supply chain collapse.
Yeah.
I'm not paranoid about it. I'm not apocalyptic prepper guy. You know what I mean?
I'm not even going to worry about it the next time it happens. I'm like, listen, you guys scared the shit out of everybody last time.
Absolutely.
Not cool. I lived. So
I have a COVID question, though, because this is something that's always been in the back of my mind. So I launched my own podcast, which is focused on hospitality in May, March 17th is when everything officially locked down. Worst St. Patty's Day ever. I remember that. And then I probably launched my podcast around early April. And that was when shit was changing every like 72 hours.
Yeah.
And it quickly went from what are you doing to stay alive to how are you doing? And I've had success with it from there. But I've always thought, especially since I launched my show in the pandemic, as a chef and as a hospitality veteran, were there anything, because there were so many things that people did to adapt, or I fucking hate this word, but pivot. Was there anything?
Lateral.
Lateral. No, I'm sticking with lateral from now on. That's way better.
Oh, yeah, we lateraled out. I'm like, oh, God. No. But yeah, it's a great term for it.
But was there anything that we did do during COVID that maybe we should have kept around? Like for me, I think like to-go cocktails, which I think expires in 2026 here in California. But like I thought to-go cocktails
Is that the
were
official
freaking great.
demarcation?
I think that's right. I'd have to double check with somebody with ABC about that. But I think it's 2026 is when that expires.
Because I don't know too many people that are doing to-go cocktails anymore.
No, because I think the market just didn't stop. You know, you finish dinner and you're not going to be like, also, can we like 6 daiquiris to roll out of here with?
Well,
like,
yeah, and the bar business is not
tough
going
right now.
great.
No, people
Yeah.
are not
Yeah.
drinking. So if
Yeah.
you're watching this responsibly, but pick a few.
Absolutely.
He says drink responsibly.
Responsibly, how do
I
we go
say
to?
just drink.
Just drink, yes.
Period. Not Caradura.
Not just because it's inauguration day, whether you're
It's
an
good
upper
for
or a
you.
downer.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're celebrating inauguration day, or
or
you're bummed about it.
you're
So,
bummed, exactly.
This is going to work
Either
for both
way,
of those.
Either that will throw a Band-Aid on it real fast
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, right?
I was talking with a good chef buddy of mine that I partner with in Palm Springs, and I signed on with Take a Chef is the biggest player out there right now in the private chef realm, right? But they're located out of Madrid. I signed on with them probably just about 7 years ago for the first time, and I started doing this full time, like I said, about 3 or 4 years ago. But I partner with a very good friend of mine, Chef Tien, in Palm Springs. When I started working more of the state, I started handing off part of my Palm Springs presence to him. But we just were talking about the fact that cannabis is making a lot of inroads with people now.
Yeah.
And what used to be 90%, when people were partying in Palm Springs, we used to be 90% alcohol, is way more 70-30 or maybe even 60-40, alcohol to cannabis or maybe some microdosing or whatever.
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch that shift, how people are drinking less. And what's going on right now in the bar business is, particularly in LA, well, drink in LA can be about $22 now, right? I know, it's crazy. So what a lot of restaurants, and it took me being in a couple of restaurant situations to understand that you don't make money selling food, you make money selling alcohol. Right?
Yeah, that's where your big margins are.
That's
Just the way it
just
is.
the way it is. If you put a bar in your place, you're dropping an ATM in there. But what's going on, particularly in LA, is restaurants are trying to make up for lost bar revenue by raising their drink prices. But they're starting to get into this death spiral where people are drinking less because the drinks are more expensive. Right? Well, shit, I can take a gummy and maybe have a couple stray beers at home and then go out, or I can spend $180 on drinks for a night.
It's also that quality too. There's a lot of places, because I think I was literally listening to Eric Castro's podcast on the drive over here, Bartender at Large, and he was talking about the lack of mentorship and that all these people got out of the bar industry during COVID, and now you have all these young bucks, but they're not learning anything.
Yeah.
They're like, you'll have this great heavy, here's these 12 cocktails that we're fat washing this and doing this, and you'd be like, can I get a daiquiri? And they're like, I gotta Google that, and they don't know. So I think you have places in LA like Thunderbolt and killer bar programs, but that's not every place. So all of a sudden you have like a $22 Tito's and soda, and I just don't think people are willing to pay that.
No, not for that
at all.
Yeah.
Especially when they know what the house is paying.
Yeah.
God, don't get me started. Well, I've had some guests Google me prior to getting booked wherever I'm at. And I've had them like, Chef, you come up as you come up as a legendary Orange County bartender. And I'm like, yeah, well, I was. And I would actually, I don't like toot my own horn too loud, generally speaking. But I would say that while I was writing for the OC Weekly and I was bar managing at Memphis, I would probably say that potentially for about 2 years, I single-handedly drove cocktail culture in Orange County. Maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't take it quite that far, but I was very, very engaged with what was going on, and I was super dynamic. I'm a hell of a fucking hand behind the bar. Yeah. I'm really good. I'm not tooting my own horn, but bartending to me is gentleman's occupation. And I was fortunate, I came up under old guys like Ed Scott and Frank Panza, these old, 60s and 70s bartenders. And then I brought up a lot of guys like Ricky Yarnell and Johnny Sampson and Jefferson Van Billiard that turned into legendary Orange County bartenders on their own. So bar culture has definitely suffered post-COVID because a lot of people, but restaurant culture did too.
Yeah.
Right? If people that weren't engaged, that didn't want to work in kitchens during COVID, they just got another job. They didn't care. Fuck, it doesn't matter if they're a prep cook or they're doing roofs.
Right.
So, and what happened to a certain extent too is a lot of veterans like me during COVID, we didn't get back in the restaurant business. We became private chefs or consultants or whatever we decided to do. There's a lot of chefs that didn't go back in the kitchen. Again, you're looking at that leadership equation where, a lot of that leadership evaporated. Plus, nothing against anyone directly, but like people that are younger than me are doing this all the time. And I'm sorry, that was insert audio. That was me looking at my phone. When I've been around servers that are 20, 21 years old and they can actually look people in the eye and they're engaging, I'm like, oh, wow. What was Gandalf? Did he show up and show you how to do that? You know what I mean? Like that's another quality that's missing is sort of that personal touch that is, everyone says we're more connected with this, but I think it distances us in a certain way as well.
I think maybe in the beginning.
Waterloo ASMR.
Woo!
Oh.
Yeah.
So we got to wrap up, but I wanted to ask one more question when we were talking about cannabis. How do you think that's going to influence the bar culture maybe in the next 10 years? Do you think we're going to see some introduction to maybe having weed products in bars, in restaurants? Do you think we're going to make that shift?
It's a great question. I have a friend of mine that opened up, actually he managed to pull it off in, I believe, Wyoming. He managed to open a dispensary in a bar up there.
Cool.
I don't know how he flew that by the local authorities, but
that's like having like the Pizza Hut and the KFC in the same building.
Exactly. Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah, exactly like that. Taco Bell on one side and McDonald's on the other.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's always hard to kind of fast forward on certain things particularly with cannabis. I wonder how
do you know how to 86 somebody? They won't stop ordering dessert.
Yeah, and how violent are they really going to get? I don't know. Although some people get really super fucking high with because I grew up smoking dad weed when I was a kid. So
weed nowadays is
oh my god, it's crazy. But I think the cannabis. I'm not betting the cannabis is going to have a long-term effect on the bar business necessarily. I'm not saying the cannabis is a flash in the pan, and I think there's a potential there for, to be honest, people using kind of less of everything, and I don't want to say unfortunately because we're sponsored by Herradura, but there's a lot of people that there's that whole sober curious thing. You know what I mean?
Or even lower ABVs, things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Lower ABVs. When I was drinking, there was a time I wanted an IPA, and there was times that I would just want something super chillaxy too.
Yep.
Is that scarier than going into a place and you look at the beer menu and you're like, is there anything lower than 9%? Like,
yeah.
Can I just get like shitty pills?
Even when I was partying, I remember having a couple like 11s, and I was like, fuck, man, I'm wasted right now. You know what I mean? This is the good stuff, by the way. Here, let's get this taken care of. So I came up with this idea. I'm sure I'm not the first one to ever do it because there's hardly anything new in the culinary realm. But I call this a Piloncillo Cremoso.
Oh, dude, yeah, why not? Load it.
So what I do is I whip heavy whipping cream with a little bit of salt.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take it up to almost like a frosting kind of consistency.
Okay.
And then I add piloncillo, Mexican brown sugar.
Yeah.
And then it almost breaks.
Ooh.
And then you fold it back in with a little bit of heavy cream. And I think it has a very, very one-off texture.
Great texture.
Gotcha.
There we go. That's really good.
And then this is, I went away from regular, what I call white person cinnamon. I use nothing but freshly ground canela and terra because it just tastes more like cinnamon.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty good little setup. And I'm gonna plug my cooking. Are you guys ready?
Wow. Yeah, we can cut back in.
Yes, what I call what I do the new West Coast, right? Because my inspiration, again, generationally, is I remember my grandmother with that sort of 1948 Sunset Magazine Menlo Park aesthetic, like all the stuff from back then that I grew up that I found very comforting. And when people ask me about my style of cuisine, I call it the New West Coast because I take those basic roots almost and I slam them into contemporary Central American and Mexican food with a little bit of sort of rustic California as well. So at heart, I'm a West Coast cook. And then I just kind of layer on influences of stuff that I've been around. And again, a lot of it's my younger brother, Chris. I still cook exactly like Chris all these years later. And it's the journey of being in the high Sierras. It's the journey of being in Baja. It's being the journey of my first restaurant was in the city of Orange, the District Lounge. I opened that 20 years ago, first brick and mortar. And like I said, I've been around a lot of great chefs, especially in recent years. It's been really, it's been a real blessing. But taking all those different influences and kind of plug them into what I would consider roots, West Coast, old school California. And I love the old California rancho aesthetic. I love the narrative. Yeah. I'm actually a Vallejo, which is crazy. I found out most likely that Mariana Guadalupe Vallejo was most likely my great grandfather from an illegitimate child, which is kind of trippy, part of that Sonoma clan. But that sense of California history is where I'm drawn towards with my cuisine for sure. Yeah. And that has changed. And again, perspective wise, my idea of Mexican food growing up, because I'm a little bit older than some of my younger chef buddies, was Taco Bell, dude. When it was good, back in the 70s. So, and I didn't have a taqueria taco, like a real one, until I was 20 years old. And I remember having one, I'm like, oh, what is this? Like, what the fuck's going on? And I was like, oh my God, this is great, but that's something.
Where's this been?
If you're in your 30s, like, you grew up with that shit. So, yeah, it's different. Yeah.
New West Coast. I like that.
No, this is delicious.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow, that was really, it's hard to describe.
I forgot what I was doing for this dessert.
I like that salt to sweet thing. Me and Chef Cody Requejo.
That's awesome.
Got a tad too much salt in, but not bad. I never understood salt to sweet until I had a restaurant in South Coast Plaza, or more accurately, the Performing Arts Center complex, called The Retreat. And Cody did sushi, and then I did Mediterranean food, and then whatever the fuck I wanted. And I never understood salt to sweet until I watched him make sushi rice one time.
Yeah.
And when he added just a pinch of salt to a big giant thing of sushi rice, and it didn't make it saltier, it brought out the sweet in the rice. I was like, oh, well, that's counterintuitive, but works perfectly. So, salt to sweet works really well for me.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
It was awesome, man. Holy crap, I'm full.
Dude, well, thank you so much for coming in and setting up this awesome spread.
Easy peasy.
Out of the back of a Prius.
Out of the back of a Prius.
I didn't even break a sweat. Don't even worry about it. Yeah. Now, when I'm going to break a sweat driving to Palm Springs in a few minutes to go cook for a party, I can't believe I'm driving.
You're going to break it.
I'm going to break a sweat.
It's fine. It was nice out there this weekend. I was there. Weather was good.
Yeah. No, the weather's been spectacular out there from what I've heard. So I got to find out firsthand.
If people want to learn more about you, find like your writing, your photography, look into booking you if they're out here on a visit for private chef gigs or anything like that. What are the various mediums that people can find you through?
Instagram at Chef Dave Mao, MAU. And then chefdavemao.com is my website. Those are the two best ways to get a hold of me. I've got some agency presence, obviously, if you want to go to Take a Chef or one of those, that's another way to get in touch with me. But and like I said, I do everything between Baja Sur and Northern California as of right now. It's a great adventurous way to be a chef. Like I said, survivorship's there. I'm lucky to be doing this like I am right now. But those are the best ways to get a hold of me. And I love, my chef buddy's like, oh my God, your Instagram reel looks great. And I'm like, dude, I went to film school. Like, it should look good, right? Like, I mean, the only problem is it didn't. But I particularly like staying in touch with people and meeting new people via Instagram. So that's the best way to reach out to me. And I love making new friends, too. I love what I do. Again, having, all my decades doing this, and it's been over 4, technically, if you count McDonald's. There's been times I've been really sick with it. It's waxed and waned up and down for sure. But at this point in my career, with the things that I've been around, both good and bad, and the experiences I've had and the opportunities I've had to be around a bunch of really amazing, talented people and a few dickheads here and there. But to be, when you're out past all of that and you get a chance just to be nice, it's a real nice spot to be in for sure.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I'll take that one.
That's awesome, man.
All right, you guys. I think that's a wrap for today.
Let's do it.
Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check out TacoTuesday.com for all of your podcast and your taco needs. Cheers.
Bye-sies.
Bye-sies.